Last but not least, system problems. What are the system problems? Well, first of all, pluggage. Pluggage of the nozzles of these systems. You're going to be shooting chunks through this stuff, and we got to make sure the chunks are small enough to pass through the smallest nozzle. So they literally will put choppers at the front end as the stuff gets to the pump, so it will chop the stuff up. You know, and things that you think about what might get through there. If this is a dairy or a feedlot, just straw. You know, straw is not an easy thing to pass through a nozzle. It's the worst thing in the world. You know, you got things that are long and stiff, and they get wedged in any time it wants to turn. It doesn't want to turn. You know, it's going to get stuck in there. So you got to be a little concerned about straw. You got to be concerned about how big the chunks are of the other stuff that's coming out. And so they will use, they actually use a device that will skim off all the solids and lift them right out of the water. And then they'll also run choppers for the stuff that does get into the pump. In fact, some pumps actually have chopping impellers built right into them so that the stuff isn't too big going out the system. So if you're running, they actually make center pivots that all they put on them are big guns. Right on. Because the smallest nozzle will be at least 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch in diameter. So they're not, you know, they're throwing out some chunks. They're going to make sure that they can have big nozzles to throw those chunks out. Another problem is wear. And wear usually comes from abrasives that might be in that water. Now you think about abrasives in the water, you think about they go harvest potatoes, bring the potatoes. Potatoes are grown in sand generally. They bring those potatoes into storage. There's some sand on every potato skin that comes into those storages. They move those potatoes out of that storage into the food processor. They get washed down. Well, all that sand, the few grains of sand on every potato skin gets washed out. It gets put into the wastewater system. And so you're going to be pumping some sand a lot of times out of these systems, particularly in food processing where you're running crops in food processing. And that sand is going to wear the nozzles out and wear the pump impellers out and other things that happen to be wear components within the system. Last but not least, we have corrosion. Some of that stuff is very corrosive. You know, manure is a very corrosive material. And so you want to try to do everything in plastic and stainless wherever you can so that you reduce the corrosion effect of the stuff. You have bare steel out there, it's going to get chewed up in a hurry.
What about brass?
Brass is pretty good. It'll handle this. It'll handle this stuff. Real high acid content stuff, you know.